All right, let's try this again. So, hi, my name is Joshua, Josh, whatever. But I'm not a YouTuber. You know, I don't know what I'm doing with this. I don't know how to edit. You know, I'm not even an eloquent speaker, let alone that, right? But I just wanted to talk about this. And first and foremost, forgive the sounds. I live in the Bronx, so there's so much honking going on, traffic, people literally screaming right out of my window. You know, I'm used to it by now. And my cat, Malfoy, is, you know, playing around over there. And Cersei is just staring at me. Cersei's my dog. But I really wanted to talk about this, right? And like I said, I'm not some fancy speaker. I'm not gonna know what the hell I'm gonna be saying. You know, I don't even know what I'm trying to get across. But I just really wanted to let this out to the universe, right? I'm not a YouTuber. And yeah. So here's one of my copies. But this is, you know, the 3 books in 1 copy of The Lord of the Rings. And it's beautiful. I have 3 single volumes here that I used to read on the train, and this one stayed home with me. So, yeah, why didn't anyone tell me about this? You know? I don't really know readers like that. I'm not friends with readers, really, and I wish I was. That's probably why I'm doing this, you know, just to spark up a conversation. But I loved this book. And as you can see, you know, I enjoy reading. And the problem with me, though, is that, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a depressed person. So it's kind of hard for me to get through reading, on top of probably having ADHD. So even though sometimes I can do some reading session, like sprints, and do it really fast, to finish the entire book, let alone like this giant Bible, it took me some months. Cause yeah, busy person. Anyways, if I didn't say before, I'm not editing this because I don't know how to edit. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm just going with the flow. But yeah, so The Lord of the Rings. It's my first time reading it. And at first I started with The Hobbit, which I really enjoyed. And I can see, I read some comments online that I didn't even know it was, you know, considered like a children's book, but it was amazing, you know. Reading The Hobbit was very eye-opening as like, you know, like, I'm not big on like fantasy books and stuff like that. You know, I can't tell you what's high fantasy, low fantasy, middle fantasy, you know, whatever that means. But I enjoy this, and I really enjoyed his writing style. And Malfoy is going crazy over here trying to open up this bag of catnip. I'll take that. So I started to really enjoy, you know, Tolkien's writing and just be fascinated by how he described things, you know. And it gets better with The Lord of the Rings. So I read The Hobbit, and I thought, like, you know, like, wow, this is really freaking good. I just had to continue The Lord of the Rings. You know, I seen the movies when I was younger, but I don't remember like anything. You know, I could remember the names: Frodo, Sam, Gandalf, Gimli, Legolas, Aragorn. You know, just that, and the fact that they traveled to, you know, get rid of this ring, and obviously Gollum, my precious. But sorry about that. So I had started this, like I said, beautiful, beautiful copy of The Lord of the Rings. And side note, I used an audiobook by Andy Serkis. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. And amazing, amazing performance. You know, like he really helped pull me in. Because I was reading some comments about the Lord of the Rings, like on YouTube, like before you get into them, just to kind of help me, and how it gets very, let's just say there's a lot of walking, you know, even my feet hurt from reading that, but I did not expect that much walking, you know, and I am not going to say I found it boring, but I'm not the brightest star in the galaxy, so as beautiful as Tolkien's descriptions can get, I did get confused about where I was in Middle Earth, you know. He would speak a lot about like, oh, this certain type of hills and valleys and mountains and the legs of the mountains and the this and the that, and I'm like, Frodo, where are you? Like, Malfoy, can you tell me where they went? Where were they? But I was enjoying them, you know, and I would read my copy at home as much as I can and use my single volumes on the train to and from work. And it helped me get by because, you know, reading is like probably my favorite thing ever, aside from the movies themselves. And like I said, I don't remember much from movies at all. So reading this was like a whole different experience for me. And I was like, wow, like this happens and this happens. But, you know, I'm not gonna say much in this anymore. I just wanted to test this out and give my initial reaction to the Lord of the Rings himself. And I have to say, it's one of the greatest stories, I'm not exaggerating, that I've ever taken in. Whether it's from shows, movies, comic books, regular novels, manga, it's just literally one of my favorite stories I've ever read. And his writing, I mean, it's literally unbelievable. Like, it's hard to describe, but one other person that I've enjoyed reading from, Malfoy, excuse me. One other person, sorry about that. One other person that I've enjoyed reading from, Stephen King, right? Love this book. Hey. And shout out to my sister who got me this copy. And also took me probably a year to finish because I'm not the brightest star, like I said, but I really enjoyed it. They write like, it's hard to explain. Like almost like if they're this God figure, you know, sharing this story. And I'm super sorry about all of this. Like I said, I'm not a YouTuber and I don't even know how to edit. If I was editing this, all of this would be gone. But my voice is just completely tweaking right now. So, where was I? Okay, yeah. They take you out of where you're from right now and make you sit on like this perspective of almost like God. And it's just, I don't know, something about the way they both write. Like if you feel it, if you know, if you're about feels, you know what I'm talking about. Maybe you don't. Maybe I'm psycho, I'm sorry. But the way Tolkien writes, right? Super descriptive. And I enjoy writing myself. Like I should be writing more. I would love to write books. But I've started out with poetry. And I remember thinking to myself years ago, like, doesn't poetry get like kind of boring? Like maybe it doesn't feel like you overlap with yourself? Like how can you describe these things and not trip over your own words and, you know, say the same shit over and over? Somehow Tolkien has managed to not do that. Not sound repetitive. Even with his songs within the story, like somehow he managed to be this poetic and, you know, just describe Earth in such a beautiful way, you know, and the people of Middle Earth, right? All right, so Malfoy is just really, like, he begging for attention right now. So I might have to cut this shorter than I expected because I was kind of getting the flow. But I love Tolkien's writing style, and I wish I could do the same. I think it's awesome, like the story itself, and Frodo, and, you know, how he went through this adventure mainly with Sam, you know, towards the middle and the end. And there's some points I wanted to make, but this might be shorter than expected, I guess. But I love how, you know, Tolkien kind of breaks the fourth wall at certain points. You know, he speaks about storytelling. You know, Sam brings this up to Frodo, I believe. I'm not sure if it was in the cave of Shelob, the spider. But he speaks about storytelling, maybe before or right after. And how, you know, he wants the story to be told. And I wanted to say more about it. I'm just, my mind is distracted. My precious, my hobbits. But, you know, I feel like it was Tolkien getting a little cheeky, like they say, right? Just breaking the fourth wall. And it's just how I felt with this story. Like, it's just like, it's such a blueprint because everyone knows it, right? And it truly is. You know, after reading it, I've thought about how if we were to send into space, you know, art to reflect humanity, the Lord of the Rings is a must. All right? These aliens, whoever's out there, has to read this, right? I don't know why you guys didn't put me on. I know you don't know me, but the same way we're gonna put the aliens on, you know what I'm saying? It's just that important and that epic. And it's just something about it made it, you know, made it feel alive. Like, it's almost like a Bible, you know? And I have this book, the Silmarillion, which I heard gets even more biblical in a sense, which I found fascinating. You know, this world is so alive. And I'm like, how on earth does he have all this information in his mind? I read that it took him quite a bit of, you know, like years to actually finish The Lord of the Rings. But the way he describes things, like I said, and in another part, I'm almost ending this. You know, I'm sorry. I just needed to get this out there. But the way Frodo was losing his sense of self towards the end, I'm pretty sure in the Return of the King, when the ring was almost completely draining him, and I think maybe he was hurt or something, and dying in front of Sam. He spoke about how he's losing his sense of life, you know, his memories of Malfoy, please. His memories of life in the Shire, you know, the most simple things like grass and trees and laughter, you know, food, you know, song, whatever it was. And it's like, that's what The Lord of the Rings reminds me of. It's like if you were to take consciousness and how we're just a pool of consciousness, right? We're all just one big pool of consciousness. And you decided, I want to experience human, you know, life. You know, the spirit of what it means to be human. I feel like it's in this book, in this story. And I feel like he does it so well. And after finishing it, I wanted to read it again, you know. But I chose this to read it through. This is a whole different, you know, topic I would love to talk about. I don't know anything about Dragon Ball. When I was younger, I was told not to watch it, but I needed something to fill that empty void that readers know about. When you read something so beautiful and epic that you don't know what the hell to do afterwards. I also felt that with Harry Potter. But like I said, right now I'm doing Dragon Ball. and maybe I'll talk about that. But anyways, I loved The Lord of the Rings, and I'm definitely reading it again. I'm definitely gonna record myself again later, but this time I'm gonna be editing and cleaning things up, and hopefully not being distracted. And I'm gonna have a lot more points to talk about, but it's a must read. Thank you, Cersei, for your input. It's a must read. Okay, all right, bye.